Well, welcome back to the C Files, folks. Thanks for joining me. I just finished what will be one of my last readings on The Battle for Christmas, the book I was going through there. I've got maybe three more readings in that one, and we'll move on to a different book. And I'm just started a series on this one, on the Christian life. John Calvin, a new translation. And this is a gift to me from my pastor, and I'm very much appreciative of that. This translation was introduced and edited by Anthony N.S. Lane, translated and annotated by Raymond A. Blacketer, with a translation consultation by Kirk M. Summers. It's put out by Crossway, Wheaton, Illinois. And the copyright is 2024, so it's fairly recent. I am going to pick up in the middle of what for us is chapter 2, but for the Institutes is chapter 7. And he's making 5 points out of this chapter. And the title of the chapter is, I'm sorry, he's making 10 points out of the chapter. And the name of the chapter is The Sum of the Christian Life, in which we discuss the denial of ourselves. To get the first 5 points, you have to go to the previous video, and they're numbered. So it's easy to figure out, just go to that number. Um, and we'll pick up on point 6. And here's what Calvin has to say about that subject matter. We should do good to others because they are made in God's image. Wow. That statement right there is already controversial in our society and our modern thinking, isn't it? But we'll pick up on it here. Here we go. Further, so that we do not grow tired of doing good, which would otherwise unavoidably happen right away, we should add that other point from the apostle. Love is patient. It is not provoked. Out of 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 and 5. But here, Scripture comes to our assistance in the best possible way when it teaches that we are not to pay attention to what people deserve in themselves, but to reflect on the image of God in all people, to which we owe both respect and love. But this image is to be considered more attentively among the members of the household of faith. Galatians 6:10. Given that it has been renewed and restored by the Spirit of Christ. Thus, no matter who you encounter who needs your help, you have no grounds for refusing to provide it. Say it is a stranger, but the Lord has stamped that person with a mark that should be familiar to you, due to the fact that he forbids you to scorn your own flesh. Isaiah 58:7. Say they are repulsive and worthless. But the Lord points out that this is someone to whom he has granted the beauty of his image. Say you are not indebted to any service that they have done for you, but God has, in a way, presented them as a substitute for himself so that in them you may recognize the many and tremendous benefits with which God has obligated you to himself. Say that they are unworthy of even your last, say that they are unworthy of even your least effort on their behalf. But the image of God, which commends them to you, is worthy of your handling over yourself and all you have. even if they have deserved nothing good from you. And not only that, but have also provoked you with insults and wrongdoing. Not even this is just cause for you to stop embracing them in love and performing the duties of love toward them. You will say, they deserve something far different from me. But what does the Lord deserve? When he directs you to forgive someone for whatever sins were committed against you, he clearly intends for those sins to be imputed to himself. This is really the only way to accomplish what is not only difficult, but utterly contrary to human nature. To love those who hate us, to repay their acts of malice with good, and to reply to curses with blessings. We must only remember that we should not reflect on people's malice, but consider the image of God in them, which covers over and erases their offenses, and which, by that image's beauty and dignity, draws us to love and embrace them. Point number 7. It is useless to perform works of charity without love. As a result, there will be room for this mortification, and that's only if we fulfill the duties of love. Yet someone who merely performs all the duties of love, even without overlooking a single one, does not really fulfill them, but only someone who does this from a heartfelt feeling of love. Yes, it can happen that a person may fully perform what he ought to do as far as external duties are concerned. Yet within, he may be far from the true way of performing them. You see some people who appear to be profoundly generous, yet they never give anything without projecting disapproval, either through their prideful expression or even through arrogant words. And we have come to such a tragic state in this unhappy time that people, at least the majority of them, give almost no alms without contempt. This depravity should not be tolerable, even among the heathens. But now something further is required of Christians than to put on a cheerful face and to make their duties cordial with polite words. First, Christians must put themselves in the place of the people whom they see need their help, and have compassion on their condition as if they themselves were experiencing and going through it. They should do this so that a feeling of mercy and kindness may induce them to provide for them just as they would for themselves. Those who come to the aid of their brethren with this mindset will not only avoid sullying their service with any arrogance or contempt, but also avoid despising the brother of for whom they're doing good as a charity case, or withholding it over the person's head as someone who is obligated to them. That is, we should no more do this than we should insult a sick body part when the rest of the body is working on restoring it to health. Or then the rest of the body parts should consider the sick part essentially indebted because it has consumed more resources than it can repay. For it is understood that there is nothing about a pooling of duties among members that has the character of a gratuitous favor, but rather the discharge of an obligation due by the law of nature one that would be monstrous to refuse. This is also the reason why it will come about that a person who has performed one sort of duty will not consider himself released from any obligation. As commonly tends to happen when a rich person, after he has contributed something of his own, leaves the remaining obligations to others as if they were none of his concern. Instead, each person, however great, will consider within himself that he is a debtor to his neighbor, and that the only limit that has been set for practicing generosity toward his neighbors is when resources have run out. How far these resources are extended ought to be measured by the rule of love. Point number 8. The first part of self-denial is to depend wholly on God's blessing. Let us again describe more fully the principal part of self-denial, which, as we said, looks to God. And yes, we have said many things about this already that would be redundant to repeat. It will be enough to discuss it insofar as it forms us to be fair-minded and patient. First, then, in seeking either due balance or calm in this present life, Scripture calls us to resign ourselves and all we have to the Lord's will and to surrender the passions of our heart to Him, to be tamed and put into submission. Our lust is wild, and our craving endless and yearning for power and honors, in accumulating wealth, in amassing all those meaningless things that appear to make for magnificence and pomp. Conversely, our fear, our hatred of poverty, of low social status, of humiliation is astounding. We are impelled to rid ourselves of such things by every means. From this, we can see how unsettled in mind are all those who organize their lives according to their own plan, how many schemes they attempt, with how many efforts they try themselves to obtain the things the impulses of their ambition or greed demand, and on the other hand, to avoid poverty and humiliation. To avoid being caught in such traps, then devout people must maintain the following course. First, they should neither desire nor hope, uh, they should neither desire nor hope for, nor think about any other means of prospering than by the Lord's blessing. And they should safely and confidently fall back on and rest in this. No matter how the flesh regards itself as perfectly sufficient, when it struggles for accolades and wealth through its own hard work, or when it exerts itself through its efforts, or when it is helped by the favor of other people, it is nonetheless certain that all these things are useless, nor will we accomplish anything by either our cleverness or our work, except insofar as the Lord causes both to succeed. But conversely, it is His blessing alone that finds a way, even through all obstacles, to cause all things to result in a happy and favorable outcome for us. Further, even if we were most capable of obtaining some glory and wealth for ourselves without His blessing, Just as we daily see the wicked accumulating great accolades and wealth, still, since those on whom God's curse rests do not enjoy the slightest taste of happiness without his blessing, we will achieve nothing except what turns out badly for us. And at the same time, we should never desire that which makes people more miserable. Point number 9. This means that we should not lust after wealth or honors or grumble impatiently. Every means of favorable and desirable success depends solely on the blessing of God. And when this blessing is lacking, every sort of misery and adversity awaits us. If we believe this, therefore, it also follows that we must not greedily strive for riches or accolades, relying either on the agility of our own cleverness or on our own diligence or depending on the favor of others, or putting our confidence in a foolish notion of luck. Instead, let us always look to the Lord so that he may guide us by his leading to whatever destiny he has provided for us. So, first, the result will be that we will not rush out to hunt down wealth or seize possession of accolades by godless means, deceit, and wicked schemes, or through ravenous greed to the harm of our neighbors. Rather, we will pursue only those successes that do not divert us from integrity. After all, who would hope for the help of divine blessing amid scams, robberies, and other wicked schemes? Just as that blessing accompanies only those who think purely and act rightly, so it calls all those who long for it away from crooked thoughts and perverse misdeeds. Second, we will be fitted with a bridle to keep us from burning with an immoderate craving to become rich or ambitiously gapping after accolades. For what kind of shamelessness does it take for people to trust that God will help them acquire those things that they desire contrary to his word? God forbid that he would accompany with the help of his blessing that which he curses by his mouth. All right. Finally, if things do not turn out according to our wish and hope, we will nevertheless be held back from impatience and despising whatever our condition may be, because we will know that this is a grumbling against God, who at his discretion dispenses riches and poverty, contempt and honors. In short, those who rest in the blessing of God in the way we have described will not be on the prowl with wicked schemes for obtaining those things that people tend frantically to long for, wicked schemes that they will realize will bring them no advantage. And neither, if we happen to experience some success, will they credit this to themselves or to their own diligence, hard work, or luck, but attribute it to God, but attribute it to God as its author. Let me read that sentence. And neither. If they happen to experience some success, they credit this to themselves or to their own diligence, hard work, or luck, but attribute it to God as its author. But if, while the endeavors of others flourish, they advance too little, or even lose ground, they will nonetheless bear their time of scarcity with great calmness and moderation of mind that some profane person would bear a middling degree of success that merely fails to meet their expectations. That is to say, those who rest in God's blessing possess a comfort in which they may rest more peacefully than in the very highest degree of wealth and power. This is because they consider all their circumstances to have been ordered by God, such that they serve their salvation. We see that David had his mindset while he follows God and gives himself over to his governance. He declares that he is like a weaned toddler and did not delve into lofty matters or wondrous things that were beyond him. And that's out of Psalm 131, verses 1 and 2. And this is the final point, point number 10. Amid life's many miseries, our comfort is that they come not from blind fortune, but from the hand of God. And for devout minds, we should not apply this peace and endurance merely to this matter of prosperity, but when we must also extend to it to every let me try again, but we must also extend to it every condition to which the present life is subject. Read it again. And for devout minds, we should not apply this peace and endurance merely to this matter of prosperity, but we must also extend it to every condition to which the present life is subject. Thus, the only people who have rightly denied themselves are those who have so completely surrendered themselves to the Lord that they allow His will to govern every part of their lives. As for those who dispose their minds in this way, whatever happens, they will never consider themselves miserable, nor spitefully complain about their condition to God. Just how necessary this state of mind is will be clear if you take into account the great many chance events to which we are subjected. Various diseases infect us repeatedly. At one moment, plague ravages at another. The miseries of war cruelly torment us. At another, frost or hail consumes the year's anticipated yield and causes crop failure, reducing us to poverty. Death snatches away our wife, parents, children, and relatives. Fire consumes our house. People curse their lives because of such events. Despite the day of their birth, anathemize heaven and the light of day, rail against God, and as they are eloquent in their blasphemies, charge him with injustice and cruelty. But even in these situations, the believer must look to God's mercy and genuine fatherly kindness. Accordingly, if believers witness their household made empty by the loss of those close to them, not even then will they cease to bless the Lord. Instead, they will turn to this thought: nevertheless, the Lord's grace, which resides in my house, will not leave it forsaken. Or if they see famine threatening, when their crops are ruined by frost, destroyed by ice, or flattened by hail, still their hearts will not despair, nor will they direct hatred toward God. Rather, they will persist in this confidence. Nevertheless, we are under the Lord's protection, and the sheep reared in his pastures. Thus, well, by the way, a reference there is Psalm 79:13, if you want to look that up. Thus, he will supply us with food even in times of extreme scarcity. Or, if disease strikes believers, even then they will not be able, I'm sorry, even then they will not be so crushed by the bitterness of sorrow that they burst out in impenitence and so complain against God. Instead, they will call themselves back to patience by reflecting on the fact that there is righteousness and leniency in God's chastisement. In short, whatever happens, because they know that it is ordained by the Lord's hand, they will receive it with a peaceful and thankful heart, so that they do not stubbornly resist the authority of the one into whose power they once surrendered themselves and all that is theirs. Most of all, that foolish and most wretched comfort found among the heathens must be far from the heart of a Christian. The heathens attribute these things to fortune in order to encourage their minds against adverse circumstances. They consider it foolish to be angry with fortune because, as it was blind and arbitrary, with its blind eyes, it wounded the deserving and undeserving alike. By the way, after the word blind, it has the Greek word here, haskapos. Haskapos is written in Greek. Let's show you. See if can I get it in there? I don't know if I can. No, I don't want to do it. If you can capture that, it's in there. All right. Anyway, we're almost done here. They considered it foolish to be angry with fortune because it was, as it was blind, haskapos, and arbitrary. With its blind eyes, it wounded the deserving and undeserving alike. In contrast, this is the rule of piety, that the arbiter and governor of both good and bad fortune is the hand of God alone, and that his hand does not rush out in a thoughtless impulse, but dispenses both good and bad to us by the most well-ordered justice. Let me read that again because that really speaks to God's providence. I'll read it one more time. In contrast, this is the rule of piety, that the arbiter and governor of both good and bad fortune is the hand of God alone, and that his hand does not rush out in a thoughtless impulse, but dispenses both good and bad to us by the most well-ordered justice, because he uses it for good, not only our good, but for his glory. Chapter 8 is going to be bearing the cross, an aspect of self-denial. We'll get into chapter 8 in the next reading, and then there's chapter 9, and then there's 10. Yeah, that's it. 8, 9, and 10. So 3 to 5 or 6 more readings, depending on how far I can get through each chapter. If I have to break each chapter up into 2 sessions, it'd be 6 readings. If I can get through the chapters without breaking them up, it'll be 3 more readings. So maybe that's a side of John Calvin that a lot of people have not heard. The only thing they hear is what they're told. They probably never read Calvin. But if you read him, he's rich in practical theology, practical life wisdom, as it is taught in the scriptures. So he's worth a read at least when it comes to that. All right. Thank you for watching. We're at 31 minutes. And so we're going to, excuse me, we're going to dump it right there. We're going to stop it right there. And we will come back. When we come back, I'm going to be in a devotion time for us, and I'll be coming out of the Bible, the scriptures for that. Thank you for watching. God bless you guys. I'll see you next time here on the C-Files.